Welcome to this explainer. Grab a seat because today we are taking a deeply fascinating retrospective look at the 2006 FIFA World Cup. Speaking as a sports historian, and particularly from a German perspective, we're going to unpack a truly monumental tournament. This wasn't just a month of football. It was an event that fundamentally reshaped the global football landscape and, honestly, the very cultural fabric of the host nation itself. We're going to explore the brilliant tactical clashes on the pitch, the absolute unprecedented disciplinary chaos that had the whole world talking, and the staggering numbers that define this historic summer. Let's dive in.
Just wrap your head around this number for a second. 26.29 billion. That is the estimated cumulative television viewership compiled over the course of the 2006 tournament. To put that into historical context, that makes this World Cup one of the most watched events in the entire history of television. The final match alone, the legendary showdown between Italy and France, pulled in an estimated global audience of 715.1 million people. It's almost hard to fathom, right? But this establishes the immense, undeniable global weight and historical scale of the event. Every single tactical decision, every referee's whistle, and every cultural shift we are about to discuss was magnified on literally the largest stage humanly possible.
But before we even get to the action on the pitch, we absolutely must understand the host nation. Part 1. The German host experience, a cultural awakening.
For Germany, 2006 was about so much more than just staging 64 football matches. It triggered a profound, almost magical societal shift. We saw a joyful, peaceful display of what was called a new patriotism, something completely unseen since World War II. For decades, displaying national colors had been, well, traditionally frowned upon in German society. But during this 4-week national festival, that completely changed. And this awakening was facilitated by a brilliant logistical invention, the FanFest. You see, organizers faced a massive challenge of how to safely accommodate millions of ticketless fans. The solution was the Fondmeile, or public viewing areas, and the attendance was just unbelievable. Berlin saw an astonishing 9 million visitors gathered between the Brandenburg Gate and the Victory Column. Cologne welcomed 3 million, and Frankfurt 1.9 million. These spaces safely integrated fans into the celebration, turning potential security risks into a massive communal party. The concept was such a massive triumph that FIFA immediately trademarked it for all future World Cups.
Okay, let's pivot from the streets to the stadiums. Part 2. Clash of football philosophies. While the fans were celebrating together outside, the football on the pitch presented a stark, fascinating tactical contrast. On one side you had the host nation, Germany. Under Jürgen Klinsmann, they adopted this highly aggressive, free-flowing attacking style. They actually led the entire tournament in scoring with 14 goals. What's truly amazing to note here as a historian is that Germany had players from all 3 outfield positions, defense, midfield, and forward, getting on the score sheet. In fact, German left-back Philipp Lahm scored the very first goal of the entire tournament. But then on the other side, you had Italy. They secured their 4th World Cup title through an absolute defensive masterclass. It was like an impenetrable wall. Over the course of the entire tournament, Italy conceded only 2 goals. 2. And get this, neither of those were from open play by an opposing attacker. One was an unfortunate own goal by Christian Zaccardo in the group stage against the US, and the other was that infamous Zinedine Zidane penalty in the final. It was the ultimate story of traditional Italian defensive rigidity overcoming joyful attacking exuberance. And while the group stages saw plenty of early goals, the knockout phase became an incredibly tense, low-scoring affair largely dictated by defensive setups exactly like Italy's. This number 5 is the perfect piece of evidence for that. Germany's Miroslav Klose claimed the prestigious Golden Boot as the tournament's top scorer with just 5 goals. That was the lowest total needed to win the prize since all the way back in 1962. Aside from Klose, no other player scored more than 3 goals in the entire tournament. The tension was just palpable, and goals were at an absolute premium when the stakes were at their highest.
But that incredible tension on the pitch manifested in a much darker way too. Part 3. A tournament of cards.
If 2006 is known for Italy's defense and Germany's awakening, it is equally remembered for a complete, utter breakdown of on-pitch discipline. Just take a moment to absorb this number, 345. That is the record-breaking number of yellow cards handed out during this tournament. But that's not even all of it. There were also a staggering 28 red cards shown. Both of these figures absolutely shattered the previous record set during the 1998 World Cup. It really felt as though almost every single match was teetering right on the edge of completely losing control, which heavily impacted the flow and the outcome of the games.
The strict officiating created unparalleled match chaos, building into some truly bizarre historical anomalies. First, we have the infamous Battle of Nuremberg, the round of 16 match between Portugal and the Netherlands. Russian referee Valentin Ivanov handed out 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards in that single match, setting a World Cup record. It was wild. Then, there was the highly unusual incident involving English referee Graham Poll. In a group match between Croatia and Australia, Poll mistakenly handed out 3 yellow cards to Croatia's Josip Šuminić before finally sending him off. An absolutely unprecedented refereeing error on the global stage. Furthermore, this incredibly strict disciplinary environment had massive sporting consequences. For instance, Portugal had 2 key players suspended for their quarterfinal match and others for their semifinal. Teams were constantly reshuffling their lineups, not due to tactics, but due to suspensions.
Looking at the institutional reaction, this quote perfectly summarizes the heavy criticism directed at FIFA officials and then-President Sepp Blatter. The prevailing argument was that FIFA had made the rules way too rigid, effectively taking natural discretion and common sense away from the referees. Blatter himself even hinted at the time that he might allow rule changes for future tournaments so that earlier accumulated bookings wouldn't force players to agonizingly miss the final. It was a massive institutional learning curve regarding exactly how the game should be policed on the pitch.
Let's zoom out to solidify the historical record for a moment. Part 4, 2006 by the numbers. When we total everything up, the data from the tournament tells a massive story. We had 64 matches played across 12 magnificent stadiums. Despite the low-scoring knockout rounds we discussed earlier, there was still 147 total goals scored, averaging out to 2.3 per match. But the physical scale of this event, breathtaking. Total stadium attendance hit an incredible 3,359,439 people. That is an average attendance of nearly 52,500 roaring fans per single match. When you combine those stadium attendees with the 21 million people who packed the fan fest we talked about, you see a tournament of truly colossal physical magnitude.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for you, the focused learner. When we look back from the vantage point of history today, what is the true legacy of the 2006 World Cup? Will it be remembered most for Italy securing their 4th star through an unyielding defensive masterclass? Will it go down as the tournament of 345 yellow cards and unprecedented refereeing chaos? Or will its lasting legacy be the peaceful, joyful cultural awakening of a host nation that finally felt comfortable waving its flag again? It is a rich, beautifully complex tapestry, and I invite you to ponder what stands out the most to you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your passion for history alive.